Hi everyone, I'm Laura and welcome to my channel, The Woken Mind. I'm here today with an update on what's going on with masculine and feminine energy in the collective. And if you followed me for a while, you'll know that I used to do these videos every week and I took a very long break and I'm back now and there are a lot more subscribers here. And I want to thank you all for subscribing and for being here and for all of your comments and support in the community section where I post all of the almost daily or every other day, really, updates and messages. I really appreciate all of you, all of your comments, and all the love that you've shown. And I'm back doing videos. And, I put that poll out here and then I also put a poll on Instagram and I asked you what you guys were looking for as far as topics and content. And there was a lot of response for the masculine and feminine collective update. So here I am doing one today, and I will be integrating in spiritual wisdom. I will be talking about balancing your energies in these updates, but I'm also going to put out some videos that are specifically focused on balancing your energies, relationships, and all of that good stuff. Now, I don't know if I'm going to do the updates every week. Right now, I'm thinking possibly on the full moon and the new moon. We'll see how it goes. But as always, I welcome your feedback. If you have questions, if you have ideas for topics that you would like for me to explore, please put them below in the comments. And again, I appreciate every single one of you. So let's get into what's going on with the energies. Now, what we've been picking up on with masculine energy has a lot to do with karmic closures. Now, we're in Mercury retrograde right now. It began on the 13th. And it's not going to end until January 1st. So during this time, there's a lot of past life connections that are coming up. So if you are an older soul and you resonate with that, again, this is your masculine energy on the masculine side. And let me just say, because a lot of you are new and you haven't seen my videos before where I do these collective updates, I talk about the masculine collective and I also talk about masculine energy. So when I talk about the masculine collective, I'm speaking about people who have a majority or they're predominantly masculine. And so it tends to be males, but not always, right? And so that's the masculine collective. But every single one of us, whether you are a feminine or a masculine, you're going to have both. You're going to have masculine and feminine energy. So what I'm picking up on with masculine energy and the masculine collective is this clearing of karma. And so when Mercury went into retrograde on the 13th, it went in the sign of Capricorn. I think that's right. I wrote this down here. Yeah. And it goes direct in Sagittarius on January 1st. So with that Capricorn energy, what we're seeing is there's a lot of clearing with karmic relationships that were based off of the material realm and success in the material world. And so for those of you that are older souls, it's going to be karmic relationships possibly connected to older timelines that where you were with people or you were in relationships that were like power couple or materialistic based. And for those of you that are not really identifying with the term older soul, it really doesn't matter whether you're an older soul or you're a new soul, you're always going to be working with the energy right now. So even if you're an older soul, you're going to be able to look at the relationships that are currently in your life. Now, some of those may be people from your past lives, but some of those people may just be new people and you're working through these old energies. And again, it's this whole concept of the reason why people were paired together for marriages was to build wealth. And then this whole concept of this really kind of distorted king and queen archetype where people were placed in arranged marriages to pass down the bloodline, to pass down the wealth. And again, in like the current times, what that kind of looks like is like these power couple relationships where people go into relationships and there's no heart connection. There's really like very little emotion, but what happens is they fall in love with each other's ego. Really, it's a projection of their own ego that they're falling in love with, which then ends in conflict. And that's what we're seeing right now during this Mercury retrograde. So past life people can be coming in, exes can be coming in. And again, it's all around like ego-based love, materialistic love, aligning with somebody so that you can be successful, aligning with somebody so that it can look good to your family and your friends. All appearances, titles, all of that stuff. And so something that you really want to look at as we get closer to the end of this year and we start reflecting on this entire year, and then again, getting close to the end of this retrograde is, how many of the connections in your life did you have because you wanted something out of it, that it was feeding your ego in some way, that it was satisfying really the mind rather than the heart and the soul? I think that's going to be coming up for everyone in general, to look at friendships, romantic connections, even partnerships, like business partnerships too. Although business partnerships and things like that are always going to be materialistic, like was the focus on like a purpose and a passion, or was it more of like, let's get this money type of energy? And so that's going to be, coming up all the way through, again, till the end of this year. And again, for the masculine collective, what we're going to see is that it's going to actually present itself as like actual conflicts and difficult conversations. And, we're going to see a lot of connections, again, that have no solid foundation based in the heart. They're going to start falling apart. And we're reaching this point where we're going to, I think it's on the 21st is the winter solstice for the northern hemisphere. And then on the 22nd, the southern hemisphere, you guys are going to go into your summer solstice. Now up here in the northern hemisphere, it's going to be pretty dark, right? Because this is the time where we go in and we do that inner reflection. We go into that darker space, which is more of the feminine energy. And so what I'm seeing is that a lot of these like fallouts with the relationships are going to happen now in this time period, especially during the retrograde and up until the solstice on the 21st. And then we're going to see more of a reflection period, which I'll talk about with the feminine energy a little bit later. So again, we're cutting a lot of these cords. For those of us that are older souls, we're actually closing out old timelines, right? So past life connections that you had because you were almost like forced to be with them, or because your soul was in a place where it wasn't really evolved, and so you chose these very materialistic connections. These are coming back in for review so that you can really make a conscious choice with your masculine energy to go in a different direction and to no longer choose to go with this very materialistic perspective on life. Let's just say that. Because in general, we are all ascending, and as we're moving into the age of Aquarius, it's actually not going to be it's not going to be easy to thrive if you're just operating out of ego consciousness. It's going to be a lot harder, because what the collective is wanting more and more than ever is authenticity and emotion and feeling and connection. So this very much like mask type reality where like two people are together and they're a power couple, but inside they're dying, or they're arguing with each other all the time, or they don't even like feel anything in the heart. Those type of relationships are really going to start falling apart. And so again, looking at all of our connections, can we feel the people? Can we feel the people that we are in relationships with? That's important, because there can be this disconnect when you're just connecting from the ego, where you can be speaking to someone, but your mind and your heart, even your mind, right? Because the mind will start moving to other places too if the heart isn't connected. They're going to start to wander, and you'll feel that. It's going to almost feel like you're not present with them. Or I'm hearing there's going to be like an agitation that's going to come up, okay? So just pay attention to that. Again, we're going to see a lot of the conflict in the physical up until the end of this year, and then it's going to be more of reflection of that. There may even be like a pull back to some of these connections, and then you want to make sure that you are doing that inner work, right? So that you're understanding why that pull is coming back up. And again, we'll talk about that with the feminine energy. One thing that I do want to say is that, there is going to be some intense shadow work because we're really clearing a lot of the gunk and creating a really nice solid foundation for the new earth. Because 2024 is really going to be a year of like beginning to build. So masculine energy is really going to start actually doing things. We're going to see some more physical world movement, whether that be with relationships or high frequency, high vibration, conscious businesses. We're going to see things coming together and soul groups coming together and building and soul connections starting to bud a little bit more in the physical. And for that to happen, there's got to be a lot of karmic clearing with the masculine energy. And so this winter solstice here for us up in the northern hemisphere is going to be like heavy and dense. And I think that, again, in the southern hemisphere, you guys are going to be holding the space for us up here as we do this clearing. And so the more you can get out and have fun and enjoy yourself, get in the sun, that's going to really help to balance out what's going on here with the darkness. Now, if you're really connected to souls up here, or you've had a lot of past lives in this geographic area and you're in the southern hemisphere, you're still going to feel it. You're definitely going to feel it, but you won't be like physically experiencing it with like the dark nights and all of that. Now, one nice thing about the solstice is that the winter solstice, it's the darkest night of the year, but that doesn't mean that it's going to stay dark, right? It's the last day that it's going to be dark so early. And so after that, it's going to start getting brighter. So it's actually one of the days that I love to celebrate with my children. We don't do a lot of traditional holidays, but one of the things I did when they were really little is we would read this book called Sun Bread, and we would bake this little loaf of bread and put a little smiley face in it, and it was a sun and a little rays all around it and a circle. And so it was a celebration of the sun returning. And so we are getting to this point where we've like cleared a lot of the darkest parts. And again, like I think we've got the fallout with the physical world conflicts and possibly arguments, and then there's going to be a lot of reflection. So let's get into what's going on with the feminine energy right now. So like I said, the feminine energy is, again, it's the inner world, right? And so for, again, those of us that are in the northern hemisphere, we're going to be going deep into the feminine right now. And so those physical world conflicts are going to be closing up at the end of this retrograde, and then there's going to be deep reflection and processing, and there's going to need to be emotional clearing as well. And so that emotional clearing is going to possibly be tied to a lot of these past life connections that are around materialism. And what we see when relationships are based off of this kind of like distorted masculine energy of people are assigned to each other because it looks good. They're assigned to each other to keep a bloodline going, to keep wealth going, to pass down wealth in a family lineage, right? All of that. What we see is that the feminine kind of dies in a sense, right? It is dominated by masculine energy when true love doesn't exist or isn't allowed to exist. And so what we're doing as we move into this age of Aquarius is that we are resurrecting really that feminine energy, that heart space energy, and bringing her back here to the physical plane. And, for that to happen, we really do have to be able to feel our hearts. And we can't feel our hearts when the ego is running the show. And so this breakdown of the ego, which is going to be, it's challenging. It's not pleasant, right? Especially if you have to end a connection with someone, or you have an argument with somebody, or you have to set really harsh boundaries with someone that you felt that you really truly loved, but then you see that it wasn't really love. That's going to be difficult, but it's necessary to like break that ego down so that we can feel a little bit more of the heart. And so as that ego breaks down, the heart space is going to come in online a little bit more for a lot of people. And so with their feminine energy, you're going to start feeling, you're going to start just feeling more in general. And I truly believe that we're going to see the feminine collective really thriving at this time. So it's going to be like a breakdown and a pause for the masculine collective, and the feminine energy is going to thrive a little bit more in this energy, in this kind of introspective inner world energy that's going to come up all the way until about the springtime here for the northern hemisphere. So feminine energy is leading the way as far as the creativity that's needed to continue to build and really ground the age of Aquarius. With your feminine energy, there may be a lot of stuff that you have to clear as far as the emotional damage that was experienced from being in connections that were karmic. Because karmic connections, again, they shut off your emotions and it creates this kind of very like stoic, cold existence. And we had to operate that way for so long because that is really, again, relationships were really, again, based off of like survival, physical world survival. And this is coming in, and I wasn't sure if I really wanted to share this, but I'm going to be straightforward with you guys. There's a lot of energy coming in, like concubine type energy, because if we look back into the history of like the rise of the distorted masculine, a lot of times the kings had tons of concubines and multiple wives. And so the women were always competing for attention from the men. And so that concubine energy of like, not like, there's no sisterhood in that, right? Because you're needing to compete to get attention from the king, and then that's the only way you can survive, right? Because otherwise, if you're not picked, then you're going to be like a peasant, right? That type of energy is coming up. And so women and feminines in general, and all of us with our feminine energy need to look at that kind of compete, overgive, overperform really for the distorted masculine to get attention, pick me type of energy. All of that needs to be cleared. It's coming from a very wounded space because we want to get to a place of like true sisterhood and true emotional connection. We can't authentically connect to each other with wounded feminine energy. So we want to get that feminine energy healthier. We want to get that feminine energy, I'm hearing really strongly, trusting that this is a safe place and that she is not going to be persecuted. She's not going to be taken out for existing from her soul space and showing her emotions and being softer, right? And you can see that like there is a call for like softness. That whole soft life trend that's going on right now, it's coming up for a reason. And it's because in the age of Aquarius, we are supposed to operate more from our hearts. But we can't really get into a soft space if the feminine is still in this kind of like fearful, like who's out to get me, and I need to perform for the distorted masculine type of energy. So, what's coming up again for the feminine collective and our feminine energy, if there's any sort of distorted masculine energy in your life that you've been overgiving to or performing for or trying to be chosen by, you really need to look at that and set some boundaries there. Because that is a sign of both wounded and distorted feminine energy that's trying to manipulate and control. And again, it came from a survival place in past timelines in the history of humanity and the relationship between the masculine and the feminine, where the feminine had to be chosen. I mean, even look at fairy tales, right? Like Cinderella, like she had to get her foot to fit into the shoe and then be chosen by the prince, and then all of her dreams came true. And that was the only way that she could survive, is if she, otherwise her life would have been miserable, just like sweeping floors for her evil stepmother. So we really want to get away from that belief that the only way that the feminine can thrive is if she's chosen, because that's not true. We all have our own masculine and feminine energy, and the feminine can build with her own masculine energy. Now, that doesn't mean that she has to be this like strong, overly strong, overly independent, harsh sovereign energy, right? Because we did see a lot of that I would say that kind of started to really emerge in the 90s, this kind of whole thing like I'm an independent, strong, independent woman, I don't need a man. And I do think that was necessary for a little bit, but it's like the pendulum swung too far in the other direction, and we need to start bringing it back where the feminine can trust that she can have a man in her life that can show her respect, but she also doesn't, get into this place again where she's like really super wounded and she feels like she can't live without him. So again, like, especially those of you that are old souls, and if you're connected to masculines, even if it's a counterpart, or a soulmate, if you're connected to a masculine that carries a lot of that distorted energy and was treating you as like a side chick or an option, you really need to look at that. And I think that there's a lot of heartbreak around that's going to be coming up and clearing the beginning of this year. It's going to continue to clear, and then we're going to start seeing those feminines that have done that work to heal that wound are really going to start thriving. And I think a lot of them, I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing the rise of a lot of feminines right now, feminine, heart-based energy thriving and rising. So really, again, the focus is on healing for the feminine and healing from the karmic relationships and the pain that the karmic relationships caused, and the disconnect from the divine masculine because of the karmic clearing that was necessary. Because in this life, it's been really about, in this current timeline that we're all in, is cleaning up all the old stuff and creating a foundation that's going to create a very fruitful environment, fruitful, I think that I think that makes sense, right? An environment where we really can thrive in a balanced space with our masculine and feminine energies functioning as equals. And that can't happen if we have this like foundation of like really distorted masculine energy. And so a lot of masculines in the masculine collective have actually even taken on the role of the distorted masculine and had to play that out and feel how empty that feels, how unfulfilling it truly is to be operating in that masculine energy, because life is not about money and things and getting tons of women. That doesn't really make anyone truly happy. What truly makes us happy is connection to our hearts and our souls, being able to actually feel love and connect with other people, and to be in service to humanity through something that we're passionate about, honoring our creativity, all of these things. This is what brings true fulfillment. And what we've seen in the past is that fulfillment was all about superficial accomplishments and the outside. And one thing I like to say all the time is that everything that we do here on this earth, it doesn't come with us, right? Our soul doesn't take these achievements in the physical reality with us. So what's really important is that every single time we achieve something in the physical world, because our ego needs to exist here. And so we do have a need for success. We have a need for being able to acquire material things and all that. But when we're doing that type of work, that very kind of masculine-based, ego-based work, we want to make sure that simultaneously we're doing the spiritual work. So we're working on reflecting, self-reflection, conscious awareness. We're working on emotional intelligence. We're working on understanding all of the parts of ourselves, and that we're also growing in morality, which is more of like a masculine trait, and we're growing in integrity as well. Because if we just have that like superficial success on the outside, again, your souls can come back in, right? And have to come right back into the same level. So to speak, right? Because it hasn't done any sort of internal work. So the soul is like left empty. Again, none of this in the physical world comes with us. And that's why it's so important to have intention behind everything that we do and we create here in the physical reality.